Dorje loba sanje bande zon yola joze lo chuzon deme shinjola yime yeke yapso jero yeke namdro tamdro chopas Nuro chogo chobe genye je malu shakar ke chojo kursam tabe je macha jela je ran tambe tashin je mame tobe tayo simye de she chonjo samja la tapa simgel bolo tsara dambe de de janjo chem sa je 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 mendo na re Sanje Jindo Medembo Yedogan Anda Jimla Jabarajo Yedam Guru Ranamada Taya Mizemje Namje Samba Anda Loye Jeda Jena Jenjo Dema Demba Yichege
Lasso ini da samala ini dayang kashmiris.
Hello to everyone, Tashi Delay.
Ini yes.
We haven't met for 7 days.
Lasso ini cerante nyame yakuno soe.
Has everyone been practicing well? Did you all meditate well?
Ini yang akan garante Lojong datang lagi sini, datang garante Losa, ini pun Losa, kurang juga ini kita mau Losa.
So now, in accord with our tradition of Lojong, mind training, we'll begin with the preliminary elements of initially setting up the proper posture, attending to our physical posture, then expelling the stale winds, and then giving rise to the proper motivation, focusing on our motivation and intention. So we'll do three rounds of the expelling the stale winds.
다 시키는데 다야 롱도서 봐 부득 값 아니 다랑 그 체력 토미네 사비 아니 틱마다 들어봐 내가 아니 당가라 저 봐. 당 제포도 봐다 롱나 분나봐 아니 포도 봐 참아 봐 아니 상그 통수사 맞지
When we're performing this, when we're exhaling, the wind, the breath that we're exhaling, we're to perceive it that in the form of black exhalation, black wind, is all of our negativity, obscurations, karma, all habitual tendencies, habitual imprints, all of it is being completely purified. So this process of the exhalation, we're exhaling all of that in the form of this black wind, and then we have a moment of seeing that it's all been completely cleansed, completely purified. Again, it's analogous to cleaning a vessel or cleaning the cup before putting the clean substance, the clean water inside it.
다 니바팅아랑 좀 끊어오대. 아니 다 나가다니 비슷한 담제 사제적 공부 도자 대체도 담비 추사모도 니세도 소리도 냠선도 저거냐. 아니 양 끊어대야 아니 sabta.
Then second, following this, we have the generation of the proper motivation, engendering our intention. Our intention, our motivation for receiving these teachings, precious mind of enlightenment, bodhicitta, thinking that every single sentient being is vast in number as the sky is vast. For the sake of them attaining complete enlightenment, the level of Buddhahood, I will listen to these teachings, receive these teachings of profound Dharma, and having received them, put them perfectly into practice. So giving rise to that thought is the focus on our engendering the proper motivation. And now third, we have the supplication prayers. Which so the that's on the table. So the supplication and aspiration prayers and the homage prayer that we recited from last week, that relates when we're in the context of contemplating on the freedoms and advantages. So we'll continue that. And then there was another new prayer page going around that is for the once we start contemplating on impermanence. So anyway, right now we're still in the context of freedoms and advantages. So use the prayer, the 2-page prayers that we had from last week.
Tomba Kevara Jengila Kevara Jengila Rinjan Zawe Lama Rinpoche Jala Yingwa Dungay Jala Kevara Jengila.
Now in English, I pray to the glorious sacred Lama, the essence of all Buddhas of the 3 times, and the embodiment of the 4 kayas. Grant me the blessings of empowerment. Bless me that the extraordinary realization of the profound path arises in my mind stream. Kind Guru, grant your blessings that your enlightened qualities of having taken up the very heart of the freedoms and advantages arise in my mind stream.
Jawan Gumba Rizenda Yeke Mazale Kabala
The mind-to-mind lineage of the victorious ones, the sign lineage of Vidyadharas, and ordinary human beings with supreme good fortune. Through being cared for by sublime beings, the twofold purpose is perfected. Straight to the gurus of the 3 lineages.
Tata Nada Mumba Sanjay Turacha Yimbo Ramba Jinjil.
Although I have attained freedom, I am poor in the essential Dharma. Although I have entered the door of the Dharma, I am distracted by non-dharmic activities. May I and sentient beings like me, who are deluded, be blessed to acquire the essence of the freedoms and advantages. So now last, we rest in a state of equipoise, recognizing the inseparability of the enlightened body, speech, and mind of the root guru with our own ordinary body, speech, and mind. So now rest in a state of meditation in that inseparability.
Kunchen chuji jagola janza chembi shiza kunje teni ze tuzi oze duzi pada shira sabram titu temba senze pa rindu jingme lingwa la janza kene samu kene samu songuna Gase talam go kala kadan ze bandar jemba jingme jerri nyugo la ko jasar titu jabi se bo shiwa la na tuzi ondo shawa ro song tu kunghara ru jingme chuji wango la ko jasar chujende ba ro nyung de she jiro mo kada insa yar Zoba Chimenilong was some say, no dotin Binyamala, Kocha, Tara Samjo Jingle, Mamala, Kuza Chukutamba, Long Java, Yermin Hako, Kosola, 2 year mid river, Shing, Jello, Dublin, James Jesus, Limit to be Tella to them. Then room maybe some Jacoja, Jimin Chenzo was a la Kocha, Milo Topa Java, Shingi, Los. So that ring around so good young, da, Tambo Tamjur, Niaka, any Capsity of the Ibre. That tell us that Katam any Tarwache, Jorojobote, Songje. I am trending around any young. There are the circumstances Shalom, Ateneo, Sharjong Jore, Shala Sharjong, telling around the person that Sharjong Genjum Hombatan, Richard Way Mohomba Asingich, and a young Kiruki song, yes.
So again, we're receiving teachings on the practice of Lojong, training in the practice of Lojong. We're still within the context of the first major section, the contemplation on the difficulty of finding the freedoms and advantages. So in our last meeting, Rinpoche taught on the 8 freedoms and 10 advantages. We concluded our discussion of those, the 18 freedoms and advantages. And then in the tradition of Words My Perfect Teacher, there are the additional advantages and conditions, the additional 16 propensities and conditions to be contemplated on, namely the 8 intrusive circumstances which leave no freedom to practice Dharma, and the 8 incompatible propensities that leave no freedom to practice the Dharma. So today we will be focusing on those 16.
다디 철종세도 가르쳐 가서 제당근 알아서 다 담주로 좁게 상대잖아요. 양 내가 딱게 마당나 차당. 얘네 양 빼내다가 알아서 아니 발치했다고. 빼내 캔포 ngagchung에 되겠어요. 빼내다가 알아서 니제가 록좁게 타봐요. 그래서 and lower the junket sonny, junket yoni, log says on log you do Madomeva Chagres. Log says on and log you do Madomeva Chagres. The days on the Tozon Chiagola. And a charity you want to go higher. Charity you have a change. What a little so we are as.
So we can say like the 16 suddenly arising conditions or additional circumstances. Suddenly arising through happenstance. So suddenly arising here, how should we understand these 16?
8.
Or just these, the suddenly arising. What do we mean here by suddenly arising? So we have the 18 freedoms and advantages. So you've examined yourself. Do I have these 18? Okay, I have these 18. They're there right now. And then these suddenly arising circumstances or conditions or propensities can steal away or create obstacles. It's describing the various circumstances that can arise at any given time when we're not careful and create obstacles. So the analogy that Khenpo Ngagchung uses, he says the 18 freedoms and advantages are like sheep, or luk, he says in Tibetan, luk, and sheep. So he says 18 sheep like you. So there's 18 sheep, and the suddenly arising conditions or propensities are like a wolf suddenly arising, suddenly showing up to steal away the sheep. So you have your 18 sheep of the freedoms and advantages, and then a suddenly arising wolf condition comes and steals one away. Or maybe it comes and steals 2 away, and then you're left without your complete 18. You have 17 or 16. So these 16 conditions and propensities are called like the suddenly arising, adventitious circumstances and conditions arising. So that's what we mean here, that we need to be like vigilant all the time, checking for them. They can arise at any time. So the first is the 5 poisons raging.
제당 알아서 녀몽 매조 찍어야 말은 알아서 녀몽 그 토라 차버래 나서 녀몽 그 제발에 나서 제그 쥐었다 녀몽 받더니 제발에 다다 녀몽 받대한다 그래 가서 정말 녀몽 싸니 매봐서 그래서 되는 요거야 말에 나서 녀몽 토라.
So the 5 poisons raging. So generally speaking, we all have the afflictive emotion. It's based on the arising of the afflictive emotions that we took birth, and we have some semblance, some arising of the afflictive emotions. There's really no being here that can be said to, not have any semblance of the afflictive emotions at all. If your afflictive emotions have been completely annihilated, wiped out, then that is Buddhahood. Really, that's the definition of Buddhahood. Being completely enlightened is, definitively lacking all afflictive emotions. Until that state is reached, then you are a sentient being.
동화 때 다음에는 나랑 좀 남녀 개들 값수 있는다 알지 동화 슉 치슈지 아 맞아 카레 좀 보이는 대다 양 나랑 좀가 냠내게만 물좀 재고
맞지
물좀
Immediately
still
extinguish.
extinguish.
대마도 내내 냠내는 파비야 담줄 코라야 매버서 쓰그래서 너무 배 그래와 담줄 때 되게 파이야로 담줄 쪽지도 요즘 매버 깨지지르서 그랬어 너무 하자 두고야.
So here what we're talking about is the agitation, the stirring up of the worst of the afflictive emotions, the stirring up, agitation of the 5 poisons, the strongest arriving, coming up of the afflictive emotions. That's what we're talking about. Coming up powerfully in the context of our practice when we're engaging in our spiritual training, meditating, or in whatever given activity. Coming up so strongly that they immediately extinguish or destroy our practice. So this powerful agitation of the afflictive emotions doesn't just disrupt, or extinguish our practice. It also can destroy or steal away any of the 18 freedoms and advantages. Really, one moment of very powerful arising of the afflictive emotions can completely steal away all the freedoms and advantages of the human condition.
가장 말하더니 그거니 얘네 양 위자리 좋죠. 다 맞아야 다 농가 쓰는 농가들이 맞아.
용패농가.
농가라. 얘네 고조사상 제면 부근이 부근 하남 충청도 부근 침몰입니다.
부근이
충청도. 얘네 고조 축바 쇼르네. 가만히들 축바 쇼다 혼이 찍게는 축바 쇼르서. 얘네 제면데 얘네 말하는 좀 부근이 철어요. 얘네 뭐라 철총. 고조 숨자 쇼래. 가자는
아마 부근이게.
아마 강부 부근이다. 이거 철어요. 얘네 뭐라 되지를 총. 얘네 고조 배는 몇 손 되는 답지라. 얘네 쇼.
So one instance of a situation that could stir up such emotion arose yesterday when Rinpoche received a WeChat message from Tibet in a nomad region. There was a family with 2 children, and the parents, it seems, got into some sort of quarrel, fight, something happened that culminated in the mother, and the children were quite young, small, little children. The mother ended up throwing the 2 children into a river, drowning them, and then herself jumped into the river, drowning herself. All 3 of them dying.
다 대답을 되는 답변이 기술에 너무 뭔가 생긴데 다 신도리를 통소나 아니 랑양 되는 매버서 그래 배는 되는 게 철총 그래 au통 그래 미스에 그래다 대답을 제약이 너무 뭔가 생긴데라 근데 다 정말아 좀 되지 제 말하나 되는 데 너무 같은 거 좋지 뭐야
An example of this powerful agitation of the afflictive emotions completely destroying the human condition. Or for that individual, through the power of that affliction, jumped into the river. Or people under the sway of strong afflictive emotions drink poison, kill themselves, or kill others, and so forth. So these are the kinds of examples we're talking about. How when one has no idea how to transform, take advantage of the afflictive emotions, then they become a tremendous fault, obstacle for your practice.
That in this one, that young will benefit any that benefit around Shetang Bab. The Nitanga, Mula, Malanga, Hanita, Tatanga, Muni, Maranso, Nage, any. They get any purchase of young but the energy chon and young one of the madams, no, they come just check. The list of the custom, rang around a young but the young, sons and get to work. Sons. Then it was a deal on the custom, Tamja the Transona, young Salubra. Young was in the Kaya Marco, Munich, get you get a Transona, put on a poor. So the
with the afflictive emotions, for example, like anger or rage arising, the afflictive emotion of anger, we need to do something about it, attend to it before it arises. In particular, in order to not fall sway to the power of the afflictive emotions arising, for example, anger. When they arise, then before they arise, we can take up a vow. We can commit, I will not fall sway to anger. Anger may arise, but I will not let it overwhelm me. And make this a strong affirmation for ourselves, a commitment to do that. So in doing this and in other ways, then we're guarding ourselves, we're taking care of ourselves diligently. And then, so by taking that vow before, when we're calm, then anger arises and we'll remember that vow, that commitment that we've placed. It's like, because really afflictive emotions are transient, they're ephemeral, like incense smoke. They arise and dissipate, they're gone.
That's the thing you must have done the jacket of the moment. You know, I didn't only go around to that Patamasang to the song. The child, the jacket, Shadang, the kitchen watching the watcher. So
we're talking about afflictive emotions. So generally, when we talk about the afflictive emotions, we have desire, anger, ignorance, and so forth, all these different afflictive emotions. But anger in particular. For example, Padampa Sangye said that 100 actions based on desire are not as bad as a single action based on anger.
Young when around the Changchuk just sensing and then it go and wrong at the shadow. Changchuk you can't get anything around to shadow, you're not Changchuk just sensing. Not never child. Touch you. There the Kuni make children with each other. There, the drag, so without it, she down the name as a zonket. Quite left sona, near the name around so bad because there are Yambo, Rahi Mava, Gongi and Yana Jamba, Gongi and that Koranga bed because of the Zoba Gomna for that Dramina Yorba. Oh, two skip worse at this on your.
Additionally, the true opposite of bodhicitta, of the precious mind of enlightenment, is anger, aggression. If there is anger, then whatever semblance of one's bodhicitta there is will be gone, will be destroyed. Anger and bodhicitta are like fire and water. So here we're being extolled to recognize this about anger. Anger is the enemy number one. And in the moment anger arises, having recognized it, then we are to apply all sorts of antidotes. There are the litany of different antidotes we can apply to anger. The anger arises, we can rest in the state of recognizing that its nature is not truly established as without any actual nature. We can counteract it through the meditation on love or patience. Really, there's all sorts of these antidotes we can apply to it. So here we're being told that we need to do that.
Yang ngarang su nyamne je thomna khozo ngarang su nyamne ge chho chabiyo ba nyamne ge chho ene yang ene kusan ba shang ne yora ene shedang ge de ne nga so yor mena ene zoba samkom se ba nga so de ne pe de se shedang ge yor mena de nga so zoba goya yo mare ba ene 동아리면은 이제 공사 요마로 참견을 뜻서 담게 양 알아서 그 여바 찍고 쪄말 대담게 양 아주 냠내게 좋아 차도 양 가시기 때문에 너 내가 말이야 나온 요래 다이나 출생인데 자완이네 또 두고여서 말이 다이나 자완이네 말은 영어 요래서 그냥 좋아 가시더라도 그런 게 내년은 맞자야 뭐 직대는 내가 제보고 요래서 근데 직대는 때는 자완이네 욕도사 말해 근데 말했어 맞아 직대는 다다 같아 그거 요 말에 두고 말해 때 말해 알아서 그 전생에도 좀 갈래 방해지고 참참나 전에서 담게 요네는 요네 참참나 그래서 담게 양 요네야 차려 요래서 전에
So when we can apply an antidote, when afflictive emotions arise, when various conditions arise, and we can take them in our practice, we can make them our spiritual practice, then they become catalysts for our practice, allies to our practice. Like as it says in Words of My Perfect Teacher, without something or someone to be angry at, how are you ever to practice patience? If there's no object, no thing that arises your anger, then how can you meditate on patience? What is it based on that you can cultivate patience? Likewise, without any suffering, how can you develop compassion? So in these ways, by taking afflictive emotions and whatever conditions arise, then those afflictions, those conditions become allies to your spiritual training. Sometimes people think, kind of report to Rinpoche, oh, I'm angry, I have these afflictive emotions, I can never accomplish the Dharma, I'm like too angry of a person.
Someone has asked a question.
Really? Yeah, didn't yeah. So that, like, I have these things, so I definitely can't practice the Dharma. Like today, there were some questions that came up that were written in regarding people's circumstances making it impossible to engage effectively in the Dharma. I have to engage in the world. I have these worldly activities, these like worldly obligations. Because I'm like bound by them, I have no means to accomplish the Dharma. Rinpoche says we don't have to see it that way. Any condition, any affliction, whatever it is we're doing, can become part of our practice. It's not that we're supposed to be completely divorce ourselves, take ourselves entirely out of the world, have no activities, no faults, no afflictions arising. We engage with them, whatever it is that's arising. And with our faults, by recognizing them, applying antidotes, then they gradually are abandoned, or gradually they get better and better. We progress through them. And sometimes even what initially are faults, through practice, are transformed and actually become qualities.
요모라고 요 말에 셰당다 하는 셰당이 요 말에서 요 말아
셰당 랑건 쭈주르세리
셰나 그래서 셰당 요 말에 셰당 라고 때문에 요모라고 해서 요 말아 제참 콜 때는 말한 저거 장첩지 가르세는 애네 소들의 장사 상하고 도마도 나도 너무 믿어 그래서는 그 장첩지 샘께 두고 말해 동함에 냠용 째고 말해 냠용에 남철제 두고 말해 쟤는 장샘에
냠용
살다 찍고 말고 그래서 다른 말한 저거 아니 냠용도 그때 매발 때니 Ini ngaran so pene tata ngaran so ani sanga chi. Doji tu binye kan nyamna yo ba. Nomba. So ngai nomba bumero. Ini dongari yo mare. Ini inge cheng mo. Ini ta karesa go ko ini sotan binge cheng mo. Inge ma chi na chang chup ji sem cheng mo. Dede ini ngaso tare tapi lede ngaso inse. Yang samjene ngaso tare tapi liba ngaso la nyom wa rapa yoba la te dela te ni ngaso nyam ne che. Ini ngaso domba som git no churu yore tseje la saji ji ko to tuya. Ani koso la nyom la pa yomare ina ya koso chang chup tu ya ke ni. Ni ba yomare. Pero
For example, the gods in God realm, they have no coarse afflictive emotion, no strong coarse afflictive emotions. The gods have no anger. So we're asking, right? The gods have no anger. Well, yes, gods have no anger. They have no coarse afflictions that are arising for them. And because of that, because they don't have the fuel of the afflictive emotions, they're not suitable vessels for the three types of vows. By lacking any basis for giving rise to renunciation, they're not suitable recipients, vessels for the vows of individual liberation. And likewise, by lacking coarse afflictive emotions, then they're not suitable practitioners or recipients for the vows, the sacred commitments of the mantra vehicle. You need the afflictive emotions. That provides the basis. And lacking experience of coarse suffering, then there is no impetus, no basis for giving rise to compassion. If there's no suffering, one can't cultivate compassion. So again, lacking renunciation, they can't enter the vehicle of individual liberation, can't take up the vows of that. And with no compassion, there can be no bodhicitta, so no vows of the bodhisattvas. So it's in these ways that there's the saying that our current physical support, the human condition, is more exalted than the body of the gods. And this is why. It's because we have the experience of coarse afflictive emotions. That makes our situation superior. It's based on having coarse afflictive emotions that we are suitable vessels for the three vows. Individual liberation, the bodhisattva vows, and the sacred commitments of the mantra yang. Because we have the afflictive emotions, are these, and then are suitable vessels on the three levels, that then we have the opportunity, the unique opportunity, of, while being a human being, to attain complete enlightenment, the stage of Buddhahood, in just a single lifetime. So that's first. Second, we have being very stupid, which is really the same as being completely ignorant, totally ignorant.
Brilliant. To become brilliant.
Like awaken it or something. Awaken it. So this being very stupid, being in this like strong state of ignorance, or just lack of recognition, lacking awareness. Then we need to, or something can be done. There's different things we can do to increase the appearance, the arising of wisdom, of intelligence. Make supplication prayers to increase this, to increase the radiance of our awareness. Supplication prayers pray in particular to Manjushri, recite the mantra of Manjushri. Different ways to awaken, refreshen our awareness, our rigpa.
되네. 나라 저 되네. 도와나 되도 되네 가서 결혼돼서 건져 되네 가서 또 뭐 쇼케 뭐지 되네 검미하고 되네 매마 차르고도 왔더니 거기서 많이 통 되네 강가 먹고 차 되네 야 랑제 되네 거기서 어렸을 때는 가래서 척행성에 들어지어서 생들에서 되는 가서 다 명말도 쓰게 생애 공부들한테 주관만 교육을 들어서 요사래 근데 네 가래 파대지는 파라마 파대 야 그냥 척가래 샘되더니 거기서 되네 많이 이제도 야도 쓰게 철때 되네 쓰게 되네 레송이래
하면 신지 육마
척행성
작신.
To if you're like feeling lazy and then kind of dullness, then you just stand up and then just play around. You hold some
special
some special wood.
Yeah.
Yeah. For example, if you go to the park, they're down there now all of the park will match out so people are dealing with this.
Look at now, some you.
If you go to that park, you can find it. You hang on.
Zip line?
Yeah, so then
The bamboo zip line. Vinaya.
yeah, so then you just stretch it actually. For example, if you're lazy, you do like this, like yeah. So to do that one, we have some special wood, something that you can hold on. You go like this.
제가 매일 버지는 거 파만 깨르고도 와. 양 파네 양 알아서 그 쳐지는 양 쳐깨르고도 와. 두스케. 두스. 예, 뭐 대단하세요.
So in the Vinaya, the Sutra Abhidharma Vinaya and the ancient Vinaya, the scriptures of the Buddha, for the Gelons, the bhikshus, the fully ordained monks, and bhikshunis, anis too, I guess. There's instructions on what to do when you're overtaken with, dullness, when your mind becomes very stupid, when the brilliance of your awarenesses become very lax, you're dull, sleepy, you're practicing, you become extremely dull. So there's this particular tree apparatus thing that you're instructed to get up off your cushion, and then you stretch yourself. Rinpoche is saying, like, you get this particular branch or something, and you're stretching out forward and then back, and stretching your body out with a undistracted, focused on this stretching forward and back on this particular type of tree.
Then you become more awake.
Yeah, as the antidote. Yeah, that's the antidote to this very dull, sleepy state.
거기다 빼서 rumor서 마한테 좀 무슨 도와. 도시에 얘는 조사 도와. 타바다 내려도 대가우리도 우리 뭐 스킨을 rumor 고스디 청행세 두도.
In some temples, there's this drawing of this. There are frescoes on the walls of temples of this particular tree, and the monks like stretching out on the branch of this tree, performing that exercise.
다 니네 다 늦었어. 다 늦었어 봤으니까 다 가래 가만 있어. 늦었어 봤으나 다 개와매 대과매 레매 계속 근데 가래 가버려 와. 이네 대라 탑대니요. 삼노당나 시럽제나. 뭐니야. 거간세 그 랑가랑 따지제 모두 없어.
랑기랑 따지제.
따지제. 아야.
So next we have, depending on wrong teachers, depending on or relying on a Mara, like a Mara here being like a wrong teacher. So this one can be actually quite difficult very difficult to overcome. You're relying on a wrong teacher, you give rise to understanding that there's no virtue, no non-virtue, and so forth. You don't accept karma, cause and result. But likewise for this, there is a remedy, there's a skillful means, various skillful means you can apply. For example, you through contemplation, you're just analyzing the situation for what it is, seeing for oneself, giving rise to sense of, or giving rise to wisdom, intelligence of what the situation actually is, seeing things for what they are, then you can overcome this.
저런 게 되네. 살바 토고나. 되네 밑동사지 쓰네. 쓰네 되네 저 타바 토블스. 되네 코텔에 이체체. 되네 코페트 계절다. 코페트 계절에니 다 간사. 아니 다다 코 작은 되는 요리 도듭스나 요리 코텔라. 되네 코미를 쓰네. 빠르게 요리 다다 제가 도듭 Tene cooperative che se mirere se tene gaso somorele che la tane tene tontraje ta ko buton gubjas che sai sa ta ko tsama pure tene che se di mai tene ko ta yenan se di mo ta ko tarbe de ta michi chagdo tene ko taba tusare ta ko amate se ko sa tene ko amase ga do tene sanji gone tene sanji ta dol tane tene ko ta amase go chama so mi yena se di asa tene ko sanji 되는 로 가세 되네 거 써마 tene ko tene ko trip 가세 tene ko 할래 뭐만 믿고도 굽자드는 세바인데 저런 가고지 짜는 듯이 저 때문에 별 민다버지도 tene 가르래서 tene ko 지와게도 저런 거 추 가르래 저런 추 얘네야 다 산지 저런 거 추들 뭐가래도 손나 tene ko 빼 tene ko 됐다와 노르 그러와 그 노트만 tene 산지가 tene 내 추들 tene 열스 파다 마야 세고 그래서 야보야 세고 미세 차장 세라 tene 산지가 못 그래서 tene ko 빼 미세 버가니 당내 추들 찍고 tene 가 차세는 당내 믿고도 그게서 차이스 다 찍세는 tene 다 받던거요 tene 산지 다 추빼 미세 번 모르도 마생인데 tene 맞은 다 가르세고 세바다 내바와
세바당 멤버.
세네 야보다 내 담지 세고를 생겼는데 다 맞아 초록다 너무 봐도 박차다기 좀 그래 세그래 마도 아니 미직세는 근데 뜻받던데 요래서 뒤처럼 놀어서 걔네
야보데.
저보 때도 집어 담지 세고 세요가 담보대 다 담보 코다 그런 배 산지 접선도 뒤치도 놓서 tene sanji tene tel jarbo sengende ta ngaso semberes ta zongo karsa ta
Dambo tama de selen.
senere jarbo sengende ta ben ne rang ta ben kesere ene teles karsa teles ene de jeba sengenda churuk ben nashi churuk jeba ta de tamke tona tene taba topse
Now she tsokdu.
It was of consciousness.
Ge.
Yeah, the host of consciousness.
다 대담지 변에 자다 제바 담지 돌나서 다 도스킨 되는 거에 줘봐 잡고 제제니 되는 거에 계속 되제니 되는 거에 거 타마야 거기서 서로 되는 산지를 잡서 고 줘봐 제 야체 때는 냐면은 드라좀에 되는 탑소래 타마 고 드라좀 탑도 타마 고 가서 양양 섬이 통하게 생각하고 걔는데 드라좀 진에서 뭔가 있나요? 그 사무 야고 땅이야? 아니 콜랑상이야? 그 가서 빼네. 가서 늦었으면 봐 있나요? 그것들이 주마다 두고도 와. 그 늦었잖아. 그 탑해야 봐 있는데 콜랑상이 주마다. Your top of my concept is your top your history.
One famous example, the story of Angulimala, finger rosary man, Angulimala, who was taken hold of by a Mara, by the Mara of a evil teacher, evil spiritual master, who questioned him, do you want to attain liberation? If you're after liberation, then you need to murder 1,000 people. If you murder 1,000 people, then definitely will attain liberation. Those are your instructions. Angulimala, trusting in this master, trusting in these instructions, then went on his killing spree, killing 999 individuals. And then, having not attained liberation yet, and seeing that, oh, so there's still this one individual that's obstructing my liberation. Who is that? Who should I kill next? I need to kill my mother. So he set out to kill his mother. And on the way to kill his mother, the Buddha, Shakyamuni, manifests. And he sees the Buddha and thinks, oh, well, he's right here. You know, I can just kill him. So he takes off after the Buddha, and the Buddha is in front of him, staying in front of him on the path. Chasing after the Buddha, he can't catch up to the Buddha. Finally catches the Buddha, and whatever he's doing, he can't kill him. He's trying to slice him with his sword, and he can't kill him. He's thinking, wow, what's going on here? I've killed all these 999 people, been able to kill all of them. Can't kill this guy. So he asks him, what's so different about you? Do you have some different dharma? Some different thing? What's different about you? So the Buddha, in his infinite wisdom, knowing that if he were just needed to teach still in accord with Angulimala's perspective, disposition, understanding. So he says to Angulimala, yes, I have a dharma that leads to liberation, that leads to complete enlightenment. So what is this dharma? It is the dharma of killing your mother and father, killing the king, and then by killing the final one person, then you attain liberation. So Angulimala
King and minister in all the retinues.
Are those the you're going to have to help with? Okay. Logan will help. But. So you kill your parents, kill the king, minister's retinue, and then the final killing of one person. If you do this, then that leads to liberation. And Angulimala is very happy with this. He says, oh yes, that is good dharma. And he prostrates to the Buddha, saying, I've killed, and then says, yeah, okay, I've killed 999 people. I'm almost there. And then the Buddha says, oh, no, not like that. You're terribly mistaken. So the parents to be killed are the parents of attachment and taking up life.
Okay. 2, the 8th and 9th of 12 interdependent.
The 8th and 9th.
Yeah. Sepa, the attachment.
Attachment means taking up, or taking up meaning like taking up life.
Like grasping.
Grasping.
Yeah.
Sipa dan lempa.
Sepa lempa.
Sipa lempa. Yeah. So of the 12 links of interdependent origination, the 8th and 9th links are the
father and mother.
Father and mother to be killed. The king to be killed is one's own dualistic intellect. One's own dualistic mind is to be killed. And the individuals, the single individual to be killed is the coming together of the 8
king's retinue.
The king's retinue to be killed.
Yeah, to kill
8 aspects of consciousness. So by killing this, killing one's own 8 aspects of consciousness, killing the king of one's dualistic mind, and the parents of attachment and taking up existence, then through killing that, then all of one's habitual tendencies, imprints are destroyed, killed, cut through. So he gives Angulimala this teaching. That makes sense now. So he gives him this teaching, And Angulimala understands and gives rise to tremendous regret, recognizing his very mistaken ways. Gives rise to strong regret, and based on that regret, then takes refuge in the Buddha. Taking refuge in the Buddha, then receiving teachings and practicing, attained arhatship, attained liberation. The point being that by being taken hold of by the Mara of a negative or evil spiritual master, there are means for transformation. That through the Buddha's skillful means, teaching in accord with the dispositions of Angulimala, his perception was transformed.
Ini dujisan. Ini 다 되는 링행이 초기한 돌아왔어. 다 링행이 초기한 돌아왔어. 다지 가시 추를 배 몇바 요래요. 다 정말 내주와 같이 나차 강에 용라만 보이는데 좀 통계지 용무요래서. 다 대담지 가르쳐 버렸잖아. 근데 다 가르쳐고 다 아직 개통이 들어와. 센터니 센바트지 마이지. 나랑도 다 다르겠지 뭐막 다 다리 뱉겨서 제일루지 나차이네한다 동그라이네한다 쟁에 카레 용거요네 뭐막에 다 내기예스 내가 내서 담지 고도 팔았다 뭐잘 겨바지 근데 신체를 거라지 되네 동생제제네 다양 공연들에서 다 도스케네 아니야 못다
동년제
동년제 되네서 냐고다 딱 nga yung sama, tak nga tigdo to sama ji ko kala ko yoroya. Kon na ba yena, de nga so panjol mena, de ne tak. Tak nga karwa yo sama de te ko ma. Yo. Ne lengen de so tam ji ba. Lengen so chen do so ba. Ne lengen ken. De lengen so tam ji sha kwa ji. De ne de so tam ji ben. No ya de so tam ji chul yang ge de ne kang ga dong ma tam ji ya rang ge chul wen ji ji. 어떻게냐요? 맹에서 세더래. 그래서 당기야 추차로 그래. 추세나 인지 미니 되네 거 가르세. 그 인지 미니들이야 강관의 직보를 야즈 양 되네서 지금 세제고에 찍고요 말이야. 추세는 다 알아서 가들 랑기 유대마다 가들 진이 시와제야. 유 말은 것도 좀 그래야 돼. 이 추러와.
Sipiten Lenochen amdi le Lelo Lelo
르문 다라가 제선 두지스인 데레서 레로젠도
Lelochen Sipa.
아니요 레로젠 다다리 다다니 시야 링엔 소리도 레로젠만 두샤 라고 링엔 소리도 되니 이 레로젠 진짜 라 레로는 대나봐 레로는 시는 돼 레로젠서도 레로젠 정주 매봐 정주 매봐 있는 그냥 정주를 갖고 마치 그래봐 왜는 딴 거는 좀 데레
So next is laziness, but we went over the being overwhelmed by the arrival of past karmas. The fifth one first, and then we'll get to laziness, which is next month. Being overwhelmed by past karma. So there are some individuals that have an inclination towards a belief in Dharma, spiritual teachings, but because of whatever given circumstances arising, they're always sick, they always have negative circumstances, obstacles arising, they have just no means to accomplish the Dharma. Then this is talking about such individuals. So in those instances, it often happens that you kind of get into a state of self-pity. I want to be engaging in the Dharma, I want to practice the Dharma, but I'm sick. I can't do this. I can't practice the Dharma. I have all these conditions that are arising out of my control. This is I'm overwhelmed, that is being overwhelmed by past karma. So to not do that, to instead perceive that whatever the given negative circumstances, difficulties, suffering, illness that's arising, is the coming to fruition of past negative actions. I'm experiencing this now because I've previously engaged in negative actions. Then performing confession and apology. I confess these negative actions that I previously engaged in that are now ripening into these circumstances. And I vow to not engage in any such negativity again. And then coupling that with the practice of Tonglen, sending and receiving. So instead of getting into a state of there are these negative circumstances, I'm sick, I have no money, I can't go to the retreat or whatever, and increasing one's own state of suffering, sadness. I have no fortune, no luck to be able to engage in the Dharma even though I want to. So to not do that, recognize it as the coming to fruition of negative karma engaged in from the past, engage in confession, and then on top of that to perceive that this situation I'm in right now, I take on all of that all other beings could be experiencing that upon myself. I bring all of that negativity, such circumstances, illness and so forth, onto me, and anything good I have, I give away. The practice of Tonglen. And then also recognizing that experiencing such negative circumstances, illness and such, is the clearing away of the negative actions engaged in the past. They come to fruition, they're gone. By perceiving it in this way, then it does purify this negative karma. So such a practice as that, then, is Dharma. It's taking negative circumstances as the path. That's a practice of Dharma. Sometimes we might think that Dharma just means, locking yourself away in some house, sitting on your cushion, meditating. But really, Dharma, the definition of Dharma, is that which pacifies one's mind stream, or that which transforms and eliminates the unsuitable aspects, the faults of one's mind stream. Whatever does that is the Dharma. So then, and that book, Lelo de Lamed. So then, laziness. Rinpoche said, laziness, that's easy. Laziness is just lacking diligence. It's being lazy, not acting. So you need the inspiration of diligence to counteract laziness. For those that are lazy, meditating on, reflecting on impermanence a lot is probably best.
누나 때는 가서 캔포 강셔. 되니? 자미 말해 거들라. 미참을 조chen 나요. 콘디르 해. 아바 아마 부고 뽀뽀모 강가야 리라데.
Codelusion.
콘디르 해. 근데 조chen 찍고 나오다 때는 요라야 먹고 신이 좋아해. 되니? 콩 가래서 그랬으나. 나서 다 트레이닝 존데스. 맞아 르르랑 요 말했어. 대대 당 가서 그 배트쳐서랬더니 추기에다 가서 제약다 라고 요거 말했어. 맞아 셀마도 다 맞아 셀기 추지해 버렸어. 전제 성장 아니 다 배트쳐서래 아니 처음에 다 가는 저거 배. 대냠내 저거 조신 양양은 들으지 마고. 근데 뒤값을 때는 그때 차렸더니 야면서 딱딱 공부성이 다 최상적으로 봐. 원바 유연의 초더니 되네 가르치는 로사요 말에 주바 유연의 주제 초 말이다. 랑가 르르다 짜리게 배나다 말한 전라고 지기나 코츠랑 강나다 로그래야 되라. 이나야 다 나서 가르쳐 버렸으나 르르랑어야 말이야. 랑어 매번 맞지? 바로야 제나 튼주 땅으로. 누가나 세그러. 이나야 나서 샘나니 곰접 세나 양이나 대자미고 뭐 잠깐 그렇고 무스나 패배는 내 샘도 하고 옵니다. 그래 무스나 용는 무스 같다. 내 샘티 곰접되는 중이네. 강해 시그 말해. 제가 샘나라고 말했다. 봐. Chesana tela pena chesengaram so ene 당황아 pena ene
Khenpo Ngagchung Pama Bungut Chazangi Koderution.
후조다
음,
뭐만 주셔나래 나 공부를 때려고 칭이지나 해나시나 요 말에 다 공부 들이지 나 말에 그래서나 둘 조르고 그랬어 둘 로고 그랬어 다
Yummy Labjo.
맞춰 치기 가서 주지하지 오르와 대서 그다 살에서 다 대용 거 말했어 다 나한테 생도 말고 다 처음하게 되네 뺏겨서 조체 공부래 양내 제거를 막다 출게나 제사요 근데 위만한게 나가 가서 같이 되는 조체 나 강가로 현재
Then Yummy Lab.
근데 그 잠이자서도 그 따라 내더니 그 뺏겨서 근데 나한테 공부는 은혜기 채워와 어때라고 그래
So next we have being in slavery or servitude. This is really referring to being in physical servitude or slavery, having lost power over one's body, one's indentured servant or slave, and so forth. You no longer have any say over your body, what you'll physically be doing. So even if that's your situation, then it can happen that you still have power over your mind. What's going on in your mind? One recent example relating to this is great Dzogchen master Khenpo Ngagchung.
뒤가서 동반을 못 있어 대두글로 많이 살해 대두글로 많이 쓰게 되면
So Khenpo Ngagchung, and during this Khenpo Ngagchung, the great master of Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, who was part of this story in attendance at the time too, they say. So Khenpo Ngagchung began teaching Dzogchen to everyone, to the laity, to the children, to husbands, wives, everyone. He was teaching Dzogchen, nothing but Dzogchen, sending them off into the mountains, doing Korde Rushin, teaching it to everyone, which really traditionally in Tibet is not the way it goes. Dzogchen, it's held for just the lucky few, definitely not taught to the masses. So he started teaching it to the masses, to everyone, publicly teaching Dzogchen. Also saying that this is the only teaching appropriate anymore, the only teaching, the only Dharma that can be practiced, like from here on out, and this is all I'm going to be teaching. And it was, and then shortly after he began this, then the Chinese arrived and imprisoned everyone, Khenpo Ngagchung included, and totally took away their power over what they were going to be physically doing. They were imprisoned at that point, but the Chinese could not imprison their minds. Khenpo Ngagchung himself was imprisoned for over 9 years, having no power over what he was doing with his body. Really, physically speaking, it would have... Khenpo Ngagchung some kind of...
Khenpo Ngagchung 하는 게 시에마서 그런 미현단 때문에 쏘러봐.
세르기 최제고레스 딜라마스트라. 르기.
성의다 책이 주도다 제하샤라고 말했어. 나한테 주제고레스. 그때 내 말했어. 내가 나랑 내가 차송스. 그래봐. 롱클 대해서 가서 세 주스는 ngaso pas omani de me hon lamna tani ngaso pat keser tani ni da tang rea ni da sa yo ma ma ga sam da ma ga chue de jena tani mo che dong la one yami ki sukan ha ko ma inen samtar la ko chu che ga yo sa tu tu ki de do se gre ina de tu so ma de ne de ga ki ki da chu che go sa ne nding go go do se de la ko le nding go de do se nding mo jo ja do se da de nga na du ki do ban do ya do ni tong wa so 는 그것도 주제고 살아서 안 그래. 이제 사람들이 제대로 됩니다.
So Khenpo Ngagchung was teaching that one until the Chinese arrived, and then it all kind of made sense, and it was clear, his clairvoyance of why he had started to do that. The Chinese arrived and did imprison. Khenpo Ngagchung was imprisoned. Everyone was imprisoned. Rinpoche, likewise, as we all know, imprisoned for over 9 years. When he was in prison, physically speaking, the physical situation was awful. It would have been better to die. But they couldn't take the Dharma from their mind. the external, like superficial manifestations of Dharma, yes, they couldn't do that. They couldn't recite a single mani. They recite the mani mantra once and they'd be punished. But what was going on in their mind, no one could see. Even if Mao Zedong himself arrived in the prison, Rinpoche says he could be meditating and Mao would have absolutely no idea. The point being, the Dharma to be focused on is the internal Dharma, the Dharma of transforming one's mind. The external manifestations of Dharma are secondary. And this is how they practiced when they were in prison, kind of secretly, by training their mind secretly. But that being the case, sometimes they would be questioned. They'd be sitting up straight or something, and are you practicing Dharma? Are you meditating right now? No, I'm not. So they'd have to kind of practice the Dharma. And I love indeed.
Yeah, even if some veins here moving, then you're reciting something. You will be punished. Yeah.
Yeah, they'd like look at their neck or their cheeks or something to see if they were mumbling or there's any movement. That was the sign that they were doing some kind of Dharma. So the guards would be looking at their neck and cheeks. The point being, the Dharma to be focused on is the internal Dharma of one's mind. One still can have power over one's mind.
그렇다. 가운데 되는 거 좋다. 오늘은 왕차면은 되니야 대수가 선택 왕차도 좀 그래. 가는다 니뭐 뺀 거라 봐. 다 민도스는 여기 앞에 뭐 나는 가는 여바테 저저 가는 거야라. 어때?
The point being that even if one doesn't have control over their physical situation, they're doing physically, that you focus on controlling one's mind. You have control over your mind still. It's not a complete loss. There's nothing left for you. Point being that whatever it is you do have, whatever condition you do have, that's what's to be focused on. That's what is to be taken advantage of, applied yourself to.
그렇다. 얘는 직접 서도와 직접다. 직접 그냥 뭐 장접지 선거. 직접 세나 다 아니 네가 문제 가져야 그치. 저기 야마 상황에 들어가. 대개냐 뭐 장접지 선거. 직접이냐 뭐.
Next, the seventh of these first 8 conditions is taking up the Dharma as based on fear, taking up the Dharma based on one's fear. So the antidote to fear is the cultivation of the meditation on bodhicitta, precious mind enlightenment, is the antidote to fear of temporary situations arising. So in order to counteract this, the antidote to this is meditation on bodhicitta.
네, 다 뒷마디 다시 개발되려 리체로와. 그래.
개발돼. 리체 말에 그래.
주도 줘봐.
야.
주도 줘봐. 아야. 다 주도 줘봐게. 전에 가서 벌써 녀모. 애니 말아서 그냥 애니 다 애니 대가 요절 같아 요절 봐. 요절. Imposter.
Yoju means
요주.
try to deceiving.
Imposter.
그래서 다 요죽 되는 거 아주 간사. 애니 양아란 즉 아니 다 가운데 되니까 녀몰. 알아봐. 다 아주 간사 요죽이 님의 시바.
님의 시바.
인제도 최도 쥐어봐서도 쥐 많이 봐. 쥐봐 주말 가고 있는데 최도 쥐어봐서 그러나. 다 때라고 있는데 때릴 것 같아서 애니 님의 시비 거니 애니 가서 쥐 양다 그래야. 너는 다 대담지 다 강한데 늦어서 다 좀 됐어요 그래. 다다다 담줄 좁지에 창 여는 양다 되게 발라 철도 그 지금 가서 아주 지금 다 지금 가서 애니 다 때려 갔어. change Mukombas, that change or drama, Yona, Hetam Chetin, and the Chem Matona, the Netam Yurtubik, Sanguine and telling us that you parchet and the rest of Getare. Oh, that's all. Didn't do that. Oh, Parasa. And 다 받쳤더니 다들 뭐라는 게 되니 지와도 같아. 내가 하는 톱에서 여상도 라스. 지기 되는 것도 just 지와도 같아.
So the eighth is acting as an imposter, a Dharma imposter. So the antidote to this is to cut through, to be rid of one's deception, annihilate one's deception, and then engage honestly, authentically in the Dharma as it's instructed. So to be without deception. So that's the first, the 8 intrusive circumstances that leave no freedom to practice the Dharma. So these, all of these 16 and these 8.
These 16 말에 샨다들이 깬세요 말.
Oh, so these first 8 conditions.
Yeah.
So these 8 conditions are conditions that can arise at any time that steal away the 18 freedoms and advantages that one has. By these arriving, coming up, by having any of these appear at any time and not recognizing them, then they are conditions that lead to not being free to practice the Dharma. So even if one has the 18 freedoms and advantages, then these arise, and it's as if you don't have the 18 freedoms and advantages. And if they arise and you don't deal with them, cut through them, recognize them, analyze them, deal with them, cut through them, then they create obstacles.
다디 얘네 깨지 먹고 봐서 살수 뭐다 뜻을 담지 되는 거라고 가드 용식이 말해 다다 야고 요나 퉁고라 야 퉁고 바로 용식 그래 야 되는 거라서 다디 퉁는 야고 요나 야 예만 너 용식 그래 용서나 무엇이 맞지 안 돼.
So the adventitious conditions of unfreedom are these 8. These 8 that can arise at any time. You can start your meditation session and you're fine, free, practicing well. Then somewhere in the middle of your meditation session, these can arise, bring obstacles. Your meditation session goes well, maybe after your session, sometime, anytime you're doing whatever, they can arise. Steal away your freedom to engage in the Dharma. The point being to recognize them. Be vigilant in your recognition of them. Having recognized them, then eliminate them. Apply the antidote.
알아서 다 드닝 알아서 그 애니 다양 애니 리체스 다 리체 뭐이 먹고 가지 다 대가 저더니 뭐를 다 뭐든 내가 리체스도 맞아 추에다가 랑게 주니 됐더니 칼테로 되는 리체스가 최대 야고시 유대들에 가서 최당되네 탈에든 로나히 리체스가
So the next 8, translated in Padmakara as the 8 incompatible propensities that leave no freedom to practice the Dharma. So literally, in what's here translated as incompatible is something like separating from, individuating from, becoming separate. So here, what it's specifically with this term here translated as incompatible or separating from is referring to the propensities or things arising that separate one's own mind stream from the Dharma, that deter one's mind stream, take one's mind stream away from the Dharma. So the Dharma and one's mind have separated.
Rinpoche said someone who asked a question about that.
Oh yeah. So
다들 바시야들 그래 디마들은 내 탑에서요스 인세들 주다들 상관들 되게 되면
So there was a question that was emailed in that Rinpoche and I spoke about earlier, so he feels he answered this question. The question was namely about that in contemplating these additional 16 conditions and propensities, that it seems one's attachment and involvement in worldly activities and just the obligations and responsibilities of taking care of one's children and elderly parents and friends and having to go to work makes it seem hopeless that you could ever accomplish the Dharma. So Rinpoche is now saying that maybe by this point, by this teaching, that question has been answered and that worry allayed.
네, 그런 거는 때야 버렸어. 가르쳐서 내서 마시에 그런 때 저하죠. 어때는 예수이로요.
So having checked and examined, Rinpoche rejoices in that, having really thought about it, checked in for yourself and coming to that state, then that's good. That's what we're to be doing. So he rejoices.
다 예라스. 이기다 뭐로들 니에서 스미요데 소소요사로 요시 총기 대비노도 무슨 샤브죠 왜 되는 어머니 그러더라고 저로 뭐나 하지 됐어 되네 나 리셋해 즉 되네 말아서 요시 총 화와를 찍다 가서 되는 인정해 봐 요시 총
요시 총
조시 중화 매바 그랬더니 지 매바
시바 대바 매바 시바
이내는 디데스미나고 그렇게 막 그런 것도 있지만 일단 그거는 나는 디나도 그 농대들랑 야도 디는 그게 데스미나고 내가 당연히 뭐도 나도 그 때나 얘기를 거도 디 샬롱 스미나고
So the 8 incompatible propensities, we'll call them. Here they're listed in different order in Khenpo Ngagchung's in the guide to Words of My Perfect Teacher than they are in the Patrul's Words of My Perfect Teacher. So Rinpoche here is reading from Khenpo Ngagchung's Sinji, the guide to Words of My Perfect Teacher. So in there, the first one, the first of the 8 incompatible propensities is having little renunciation, and the second is having no faith whatsoever.
얘네 대바 매비님고 얘네 가서 얘네 교사 남에게 연산을 하고 그랬어.
So the antidotes to those two are the contemplation on the faults of samsara, as the antidote to having little renunciation or little consternation towards samsara, and then the contemplation on the enlightened qualities, the qualities of the Dharma, and the qualities of the Guru, of the spiritual master, is the antidote to lacking faith.
얘네 너 세게 녀보 얘네 가서 잡아 보면
Lucy?
너세
Lucy. So I think what's translated in Padmakara as tightly bound to worldly commitments, here just like clinging attachment, passionate attachment. The antidote to that is meditation on impermanence.
얘네 근정에 발에 녀보 매성도 이나야 근정에 발이나 근정도 좋아요 여러분 근정 봐 이게 때문에 근정에 성도 근정에 발이나요 좋아요 그래 맨날 오당 대나 이제 당하랑 저거 집 되게 되지 가서 아니 녀보다 때나 근정 줄이야 요래서.
So we have being of depraved nature, or having terrible behavior. Sometimes it's said for such individuals they're incorrigible, they can't be fixed, but that's not the case. There are antidotes. Slowly their conduct can change. Proclivity towards negativity can change.
어쨌든 라마한테서 기부터서 남한테서 남자한테도 가시 부고 충청도 내가 값은 꾸겨 미스베 또 깨하던데 걔네 빠져서
라마데서
남자한테서 요래 가시 빼는 문화를 반다게나 거기다 부고 충청도 거 빼도 깨하던 거야. 어쨌든 대저고 요래 근데 그 지마 빠져서 애네 아들에서 그 결정으로 와 대나 이 근처에 그 소주지 줘라 와 대담진 늦지래 가다 늦지 인상 요당 끼어나 때니 요 무슨 그게 싸니 형 로고 말했어. 그리고 늦지가 때문에 거드는 늦지 많이 맞아도 그래. 요 때문에 그건 저도 그래.
As bad as one's depraved nature is, as evil as their conduct, it can be changed, transformed. You read the stories of the lives and liberations of the great masters, and sometimes as children or in their younger years they're engaged in all sorts of negative, evil conduct. Like the life story of Milarepa, a perfect example. Where in his youth he delighted in, engaged in all sorts of negativity, but he completely transformed that. Of course, negative conduct, delighting in negativity can be changed, transformed. It's a conditioned thing. One's conduct, one's action is conditioned based upon various causes and conditions coming together. And anything that is conditioned then is malleable, transformable, right? If someone had a nature that was truly incorrigible, then it would follow that that delight in negative conduct is not based on causes and conditions, not a fabricated thing. It's like immutable. That would be ridiculous. Can we pull that thing? You want
to? Dene, yang dene domanya pasangwa.
Domanya.
Dene, domanya beke ene. Yang karese nyambola. Obyoki shakwa kos. Dene yang dino la Khenpo Ngagchung dene sondo. Ngajeri chenge domba suwale. Dene joba chenge domba nyambala. Yaga sondo. 그래서 그 교가 여러 거기에서도 아주 얘도 그 소도구나.
Next we have one's vows being broken or degenerate.
소된 아주 체험이 성찰은 줘봐. 마음에 가서 왔다 갔다 했는데.
네. So next we have one's vows degenerating or being broken. So Khenpo Ngagchung says the antidote to this is engaging in the practice of confession or apology based on the four powers. And then Khenpo Ngagchung has a quote saying that having degenerated vow, or the individual with degenerated vows that gives rise to regret and recognizes their broken vows, it's better to be that person than the prideful, boastful individual, like taking pride in their holding their vow. Yeah. The point being that giving rise to regret, recognizing one's own fault, then it can be transformed, dealt with, fixed.
Really? 나라 다고 돈 벌래? 내가 제가 돈 벌냐면 다 이나 직장 가서 사서 내가 다 이어서 매체 우리 독세 참은 소매에 얘네 이제 가서 그 상이 가서 그래야 가서 강의도 가서 매체 가서 다 야는 뭐로 타겨는 반에 간로 현을 뜨는 로전 로전에서 무슨 말이지? 아주 가래 있는 밴드에서 애니 양에서 수참 너무 소나 엠비 잠세 증을했어. 가때 냠나야 샤과 제나 엠비 잠세 증을했어. 늦어르다냐고 되니 좀 가때 냠바이나 내가 딱 뺏겨서 가르쳐고 좀 냠바 미야바 가리나 인사는 마야 샤고제고 대양 엠비 잠세 증아 인스 늦어.
First, take up vows. You make your commitments, take up your vows, and then if they're degenerated, you have your vows, you've broken them, they've degenerated. And some individuals think, oh, my vows are broken, it's destroyed forever, there's nothing that can be done. Lifetime after lifetime is ruined. So, not thinking in that way, then Khenpo Ngagchung is advising us. In the best case, when you take vows and keep them without breaking them, you raise the victory banner of the Buddha's doctrine and tear down the battle standard of Mara. But failing that, should you happen to break any vows, proper confession also hoists the victory banner of the teachings and tears down Mara's standard. So it is important not to leave breaches unconfessed, thinking that they do not matter. So it's best, having taken up one's vows, to properly, perfectly guard them. But if they're lost, broken, degenerated, then one properly engaging in confession, then thus also hoist the victory banner of the teachings.
차도 샤나 양 아마 매바 다 두고요. 그래서 양 소양을 하고요. 그래서
So then we continue with one's bodhisattva vows being broken and one's sacred commitments, samaya commitments, torn to shreds. So here too we have antidotes. So the inner vows of bodhicitta and the sacred commitments of the Mantrayana are easier to break, easier to degenerate. But they're also easier to completely, fully repair. The remedies of confession and practice, antidotes to completely repair them, are likewise easier.
가르쳐고 소경을했어. 그래봐. 대다 타마양 되는 가서 뭐 찍더니 로레레게 나와 찍더니 가서 많이 되는 말을 붙이지. 되는 데는 빼내지서 애네. 다 로 많이 붙고. 다 드레스 지고 해서
샤크데 체크레스.
야야. 시작하지. 다 간다 쳐 쳐봐. 배더니 나라서 그더니 나 지담지 줘봐지. 되는 거는 좀 시작부터 서치가 제고 그래서 대이나 당하는 저거 아니 다 창말 다 강들이야 다 되게 빅보네 당하는 저거 좁게 다 창수 리시 로이 무콤바 제 단적제 무콤바다 제다 제바 담도나들이 샤존 담줄 좁게 당 되게 되는 가서 가서 철당 리닝이 좁게 다 대탐제들이 나란도 다 펼쳐서는 당가서 아니 다다다 담주치고 차와인스.
So confession, engage in confession when they're broke. That is the antidote. It's best to recognize and perform the confession immediately. If not done immediately, at least on the appropriate times of the month. Best not to leave it more than a month. And at the least, without fail, to repair degenerated commitments annually. So for us, we perform the Ganachakra offering feasts on the 10th and 25th. So these are part of the, what we call the Lojong, the amendment and purification practices relating to our vows and commitments that repair our samaya. So, we're being advised to do this. Apply remedies for transgressions of bodhicitta. Mantrayana vows can all at the very least, one should never fail to make the effort to perform the, here it says, do the recitation during the month of the new year. So Rinpoche is saying that to repair one's vows, perform the requisite rituals, the Ganachakra offering, the Lojong practices, the repairing of one's vows immediately, monthly, at the very least annually. So that concludes the teachings on these 8 intrusive circumstances and the 8 incompatible propensities, which concludes our, so now we've covered all the 18 freedoms and advantages and the auxiliary or additional circumstances and propensities, incompatible propensities and non-conducive circumstances that lead to unfreedom, which covers the entirety of this chapter. So now we've received our teachings and instructions on 18 freedoms and advantages.
다 드림가는 저거 다 공정을 미셔는 다 이가 됐어요. 되네. 자, 네. 빼야 거네. 예 봤어 봐서 해요. 이나양 이렇게 보면 중국 손에 맹아글로라. 다 맹아글로라. 아, 맹아서는 몸야글로라. 아무 유리 통성 하고 그래서 아, 니까봐 인비 김새에서 다 빼내다 지가라서 그 집어서 빼지 들어가서 저거 봐. 이 배치고 말해. 줄서 그랬어. 다 줄고는 예스 까와서 그 삼모탄도 가르쳐서 나도 가르치는 이해만해. 정말 담요지 그래. 내가 스킨 가서 더블 본다고 지. 엠브레이하고 온다고 지 차네. 대시 정말 왜? 대 말해서. 와서 교대 거는 로. 교대 가는 거는 로 그러잖아. 아니 다 줘. 아니 가르쳐 버려. 개와 드롭. 먹개와 빵. 봐. 너는 자. 되니 뭐지? 다 된지게 되는 정말 뭐마게 다 가서 소싸고. 때니 되는 하나 또 그래도 톱고 여봐 손상. 초제니 다른 하나도 되지 그래도 니 봐라. 가봐 보내지. 초제니 다 대답을 제세 하자고 공부해 봐. 다다 소상. 근데 손상 책인데라고 공부시라요. 될 때 다 주의보니 니 가라하고 뭐가 투비를 가라하고 그래도 봐서 될 상황도 해서 배는 상황을 보지 봤다가 배는 야 제가 말아 상황도 공부 휴지 하고 상황도 다 같이 예매 때나 되는 사람 따라가서 뭐가 가려고 힘 말아 이나야 다다 그 주대서라 상해라 때나 하정 용이 말할 때니 하정 공부 예말 때 하고 용도
Well, continuing with this contemplation on the freedoms and advantages. In the words of my perfect teacher, it continues with this section on the contemplation based on analogies to illustrate the difficulty of obtaining the freedoms and advantages. Here, Khenpo Ngagchung said, in the tradition of pith instructions, in the meditation tradition, instead of focusing on the contemplation on analogies to gain an understanding of the difficulty of obtaining freedoms and advantages, we're to contemplate on the cause, namely the rarity of finding the cause or causes that lead to the attaining or finding the freedoms and advantages, the human condition endowed with the freedoms and advantages. So here it's we focus on understanding and contemplating on what particular causes lead to gaining this, in order to understand like the reasonings behind how the whole process works. What are the particular reasons? What are the causes that lead to attaining this? Contemplating in this way, then we gain this understanding of the absolute rarity of it. Contemplating on the causes that lead to it. And we recognize that attaining the human condition doesn't just come about quite easily. It's not something that happens just easily through luck of dependent arising. Through like random dependent arising, we have this situation. So then, what are the particular causes? So through great accomplishment of virtue and abandoning non-virtue, and through engaging in aspiration prayers and the dedication of merit, namely through previously amassing a tremendous amount of merit. Only through that does one attain the precious human body, the human condition endowed with the freedoms and advantages. It's through a tremendous amount of merit that one has this current situation. So, why are we to meditate on this? Why do we contemplate on this? Why are we to focus on contemplating on the rarity of the causes that lead to this situation? Well, on the one hand, it's to lead to a sense of gratitude, to cultivate the sense of joy, gratitude in having attained this rare state. And on the other hand, it's to give rise to this recognition of the rarity of how many people actually are engaging in the causes that lead to attaining such a situation. So it's a twofold. Those are the two things we're to be getting out of this. So contemplating in that way, then we recognize how rare and how difficult, how uncommon it is for individuals to actually be engaging in the causes that lead to having such a situation that we have. And then likewise, we'll have this understanding that to gain this in the future, then, is very difficult and rare and should be focused on that. Somewhat analogous to like a rare seed. The seed that springs to the, that leads to the tree of the body endowed with the freedoms and advantages is a very rare seed. It's not, a commonly found seed. It's not like there's a million of these seeds that lead to that. So anyway, understanding in this way, then, this is why we're to contemplate on the cause.
Patrul Rinpoche. Mama, kare cheba. Tate the little den ha progress. Mama ba ngaso kare chagres. No he shugo mar mo jago mar. Tata the little den ha progress.
Patrul Rinpoche spoke to this, saying, if you'd like to know what actions you engaged in previously, look at your current physical situation. If you'd like to know where you're headed in the future, no need for fancy divinations or clairvoyant psychic powers. Look at the actions you're currently engaging in.
Yes, Mama gave a drop and lots of time. You get top down the data. Mama, what's a son of Yaposa? Give a chamber jab, number tower, tram song. What's a give a Yapo Java? Just a Jatabares. That did I would dance on one deep near Ratsaw. Dear Rabbit is San Jim and Oya. That did trouble a matter what check would one. Near dance and with a pedal yabachi. Waran Chico Mayamba. Hama Simja Tamjera, Pato to Baji. 담줄 때라 더야 빠지네 제고도 대 제투바쇼 대 나중에 제거니 나와 도스제 제네데 당가란 쪽 빠졌어라네 대체하레스 로비오체하레스 아무 간다 따라가 톱도 이거 봐 톱아들 가고 곰 당고 깨치게 돼 니바데 톱아데 다 사치모 휴지 이마데 신이 디 더네바 투라를 마송하지 더 야바지 더 쳐버 드롭 토바지 다 땡에 제게잉 대지야 토바쇼 오다 도스죠
To the point here, right now, we're recognizing our current situation, right now in this moment. Are possessing the 18 freedoms and advantages. We can say we're 100% certain that this current situation of having the freedoms and advantages arose from our previous actions, from previously amassing a tremendous amount of merit, from engaging in vast virtue, by making perfect and genuine aspiration prayers, and by perfectly guarding our discipline. It's 100% sure that it's from those causes that we have our current situation that we have right now. So here we are, we have this excellent support, this excellent situation, but we have yet to attain complete enlightenment. We are not yet Buddhas. So we have this great situation, excellent situation, so we're to not let it go to waste. We really make a commitment. I have this excellent situation, may it not go to waste. I vow to not let it be squandered. I vow to make it of tremendous meaning, of great benefit. I will not just accomplish my own welfare, but I will be of vast benefit for all mother-like, parent-like sentient beings. So recognizing this, we have this situation, it's a sacred situation, we will not squander it. We vow, we commit to make it of meaning. We will do this, and we couple that with aspiration prayers. May I make this situation of tremendous meaning. May I have the capacity to accomplish this great purpose and be of benefit to all sentient beings. So when we talk about Lojong mind training, this is really the point that we're getting at with this particular section, is first recognizing what we have right now, what we have attained. Cultivating a sense of gratitude, joy towards that. I have this tremendously sacred situation. That's the first step. And then the second realization is, I absolutely will not let this go to waste. I have this tremendously sacred situation. I cannot squander it. I will make it meaningful. I vow to make it meaningful. And may it be so. May it become tremendously meaningful.
nga zu gu pen den de pe de nga so nye ka ba yin ba sa che wa yin ba pe na da nga na zu gu den ro da bu de cha ya na ka che mong go yo le wa da de le jang da nga zu gu ji tong pe na da den ro ro ji le yin na kwa ba nang sa ye jam zo ta ma nga na zu lu bo ji na ka che yo de na ma zu lu de pe ha jang ge de nga zu ko mo yin ba 하고 다 대리장 때문에 말아서 레게상이 마와 인자 야와다 이라서 대리장 마와 여사를 대단 가서 통고요 말봐 어라서 다 도서기는 때문에 다 말아서 그 빼는 민족을 결성하다 미게 나니 다 담줄 때문에 말아서 그 빼는 다 말아서 차지하는 성미 가세도 미 맞아 미 가세를 난 거다 보고도 보고 돼서 가 하나 기회 도도 나가 가서 뒤에 나오네, 너네, 때문에 담배 출동해. 가세오래, 출동해 지나면 양다 출진을 가세오래. 도시 사무 딴 거이나, 때문에 가서 짜, 전부 해봐. 예 가와이 말 이게 하고 그래 제자 근데 다 됐다고 지금 이 하고나 다 내더니 몇개서래 자 전부대 풀라만 송봐 더더 대만 제거 봐 뭐더니 이게 하고 원해서 다 돼. 얘는 내가 냠는 휴야를 됐다가 되게 애네 담겨니에 가와대 상마 창로도
So it's best to discuss one more thing relating to this chapter, the contemplation on the difficulty of finding the situation, the human condition with the freedoms and advantages based on number. Contemplating it through comparing the rarity of this to other states of existence. First we can contemplate this based on animals. How rare this current situation is that we have compared to how many animals there are. So animals that we can actually see. So this is quite easy for us to do. So how many animals are there? We can think of animals, animals that fly in the sky, animals that live on the earth, animals that dwell under the earth, animals that live in the ocean. There are countless animals. Also, how many animals, sentient beings, little bugs, animals that just live in our body right now. So when we compare the relative rarity of being a human being compared to how many animals there are, then we will have this understanding. You know, this can clearly see how relatively rare that is. And then within, so that we can compare based on animals. So then beings, these days beings, there are many more beings that are delighting in engaging tremendously in negative karma, negative actions that lead to rebirths in the lower realms of the hell realms and the hungry ghost realm, which are likely filled with many, many, many more beings than there are animals. But we can't directly perceive them, usually. So then just comparing within the human realm, we can contemplate how many human beings there actually are. Any child can tell you now just how many humans there are in the world. So then among the humans that there are, how many are engaging in the Dharma? And among the humans that are engaging in the Dharma, how many are perfectly accomplishing the sacred Dharma? And then in that way, really give rise to this recognition and understanding of the rarity of this situation. Recognizing the rarity of this situation, the relative rarity of it, then we have can see the sacredness of it. By understanding how absolutely rare our current situation is, then we recognize the sacredness of it. So again, it's another means of recognizing what we have, understanding the rarity of it. It's sacred. I will not let it be squandered. I won't waste it. I vow to make it meaningful. So anyway, I wanted to discuss this part of the contemplation too, on the relative rarity based on the numbers. So that, because that's part of this contemplation on the 18 freedoms and advantages.
가르사 때네 생겨는 파마가 까지는 삼었던데 아니 칼세제 르르 거거나 생겼듯이 근데 성당에는 생계 근데 말하는 저 안에 민지부 있는 마도 인다 생계 있는 데 거거가 말아 왔어 와 어야
예측
다 되는 게 때문에 레드들에서 나 네 가서 기타도 많이 봐 생겨나게 많이 마시고 있어요 다디 미스게 빼나 애니 다 생겨게 나나 미라고 요와 먼저 빼나 다 자주로 오지 이나요 다그 말한 좀 빼나 코란소야 네 미라고 이제 고소 도도 와 고소도 수고랑 코란소 거라고 했더니 이사지 두고요. 이나야 고소 빼나 강바서 성잡들의 고소 펄마다 봐도 소중제 고요. 이나양 샘게 민다가 요르바 다 샘게 망고지 파마는데 이나양 야 가시 때 마그게 요르바 배다다 가라운즈 얘네 냐와다 나 따위는 다 파마 요마와 고토 좀 더 가르쳐 다 고도 지지 잡지 깨고
냐데
냐와
냐와다
나다 얘 장마다 파마도 와만 제와들 파마도 다 샘게 가시 저지요 얘네야 다양 중요하게 샘게라서 바고 망고지 파마 그냥 미세게 소주 맞게 그랬는데 망고요 그래봐 얘네 말하던데 다 주고 됐었던지 강들이랑 따뜻한 말하고 샘게 덮게라 꺼리 채웠던 거고요 봐라 다 때라 말하고 가가 미인상 말하고 다 예휴대 싸먹다는 말하고 처와대 흉켜요 그래서 그래봐 맞아 배나 카라스에 프레디얼로 다 얘나도 싸먹다는 말하고 그 대대들은 아주 쭉 될지는 야버래 마도 그냥 참마다 얘네 두고 봐야 되는데 그때는 되게 되고요 말해서 근데 감기 까르는 게 뭐예요? 맞아 쌈는 그래서 거리
일상스러워.
Yeah. So there was another question emailed in. Our friend Goli emailed a question regarding the contemplation on perceiving all sentient beings as being your kind parents. So Patrul Rinpoche here specifically, when he's discussing this, that practice, that that section, he says that perceive all sentient beings as having been your kind parents, and when they were your kind parents, they gave you the food from their own mouth and the clothes off their own back, like the best of their own food and the best of their own clothing. So then, with Patrul Rinpoche's example, then only people wear clothes. So are we to understand that all sentient beings, when they were our kind parents, it was in our human existence that they were our kind parents, and how does this like gel with understanding going through all these different different existences in the 6 realms of existence? That was part of it, and really just how to understand the kindness of one's parents, how to give rise to this perception. So Rinpoche says his answer to this is, I forgot. So yes, all sentient beings don't wear clothes. So among sentient beings, when beings in most of the realms of existence are beings parent, are the parent, then they have great kindness, and they have like the responsibility of guarding, protecting that being, taking care of that, the offspring of the being, like birds with their little chicks, chicklets, whatever. They protect them, guard them, take care of them. They don't have clothing necessarily, but they have their feathers, and they groom each other, so forth. They take care of them. So it's that kindness that we're really trying to get to. That's the main point. That being said, there are, so most beings do rely upon their parents, rely upon their mother. That relationship is important for them to be guarded, protected. That being said, there are a number of beings that have no parents whatsoever. Beings born from heat and moisture, and there's some of those in this realm, but also the beings of the hell realms and the godly realms are born without parents. They're miraculous birth, right? So they don't have parents. And then within the human realm, or animal realm, there are many species of where the offspring are just not neglected, but just sent away, leave the eggs and go about your business, sort of thing. But anyway, it all comes back to this point that we're to give rise to this recognition of the kindness of sentient beings. That's the thing to engender. And this example of they give when they were your parents, they give the food out of their mouth and the clothes off their back, sort of thing. So as human beings right now, then we're most intimate with the situation of being a human being and the experience of being a parent and child of a human being. So using this example as the human parent-child relationship is most effective for giving rise to the strong connection, the strong feeling of that kindness. The whole point is to engender the experience of that kindness. Yes, not all sentient beings need clothes. But most parent beings are greatly kind and nurture their offspring. So that's what is to be contemplated on. So when you're contemplating in this way, all sentient beings were my kind parents, the main thing is to get to, they were kind to me when they were my parents.
Last one. Ini? Tene ta chinan zuyang tata te tene muntu lojong na as tata te te tene ya te ki jil taya te mta ka ilas te te jeme ayang la zum mta ka so lojong ta tata tam jene ka wan rotsa so ta mta ka de lojong tene ta te ka hata ta yang la zum muntu ne ta train to the lojong che tata skishos.
So we're out of time. So continue your Lojong meditative contemplation on what we discussed today. And then the upcoming topic is impermanence. So read the chapter on impermanence from both books. Read on impermanence, study on impermanence. We'll be covering that next week. And continue throughout this week your Lojong as you did last week, contemplation on the difficulty finding the freedoms and advantages. Now, dedication and aspiration prayers.
Yeah, the name that the Moran will get also. Moran to the bank, later that she said that some of them who are that young children.
Money, Beth's mother's close friend passed away this afternoon. So now, as we're reciting our dedication and aspiration prayers, to have her in our mind, our aspiration and dedication prayers on her behalf. Natalie? Her name was Natalie.
Sonam de Domje Zemanye Domnanye Benana Bamje Jenke Bana Chebala Drukaya Sembe Zolan Rowan Rowaraju Jambam Bahu Jingare Jembada Kunda Sambo Deyan De Jenke Deda Benye Jeson Daru Gewan Denda Namje Random Desuan Sheben Gewan Namje Mowa Malan Sodom Hapa Nake Gewe Zawa Nevan Sambo Jajaram Domo Warangi Konre Rave Kore Shikan Zobenda Dewa Manu Jire Zawa Nenze Kyamzo Yeshape Sente Baron Dengyurunji Umzonde Gyawan Joyan Yijen Bimelimbe Yanze Randruma Kuchen Gebu Sama Dinti Upuza Nanda Zanda Rangiye Lama Gogan Zamba Zawa De Jodo Guza Rimwa Zawan De Junda Taje Gembar Lama Nanda Member Jingir Tamlin Jinda Yogan Dendan Tungemo Zazan Meme Chudra Sanja Bena Gondo Dando Rashi Dele Bonzo. In this very moment,
may not even the names, disease, famine, war, and suffering return. Rather, may pure conduct, merit, wealth, and prosperity increase, and may supreme good fortune and well-being always serve us.
Nyoje Gawa Jeba Membaya Labe Labe Nedo Nedeya Sanje Nyodo Shu Pemo Dangye Magwenda Sesan Reme Magu Sipe Pemo Lendo Dewa Jendo Kewara Ishu Porvara Kemada Dewa Jendo Zede Kewara Kema Tondo Sanjo Jube Jodro Jendo Jema Ishu
Lasso, viene Tamala ini dashi deles. Ini Lojong
Hashidalek to everyone, to all of you, and practice your Lojong well. May your Lojong go well.
Okay, bye bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't